Hello. Hello, hi. Okay. See if my... Oh, camera seems fine. I had to do a whole bunch of shit to my settings because this mouse was being weird, and it turns out my driver was screwed up. Either way, seems like the camera's okay. I had to reset all the camera settings. Hello. Hello, Cap. How are you? Alright, today, we'll be doing some Ardbeg. A few Ardbegs. Um, we're gonna do a little quick, we'll do a quick little tour of the distillery, and then we're gonna do some tasting of some various Ardbegs. This is pretty much every Ardbeg in the core range, with the exception of Anoa, which I cannot get right now. So that's kind of like what we're doing. Won't be like a super long broadcast, but today is the 1 year anniversary that I started broadcasting again. So I thought it'd be a good time to do something like this. Sunday's not the most popular day for me, but this is the day, the 26th of January. So we have many Ardbegs. We have many smoky ones to get through. Why not? You know, why not? Mr. Bee's Knees, how's it going? Good to see you. I'm glad you could make it. You wouldn't want to miss all these Ardbegs, surely. Surely. Just a quick pit stop? Alright, that's no problem. It is what it is. I know for us people who work all the time during the week, the weekend is when you got to get shit done. So, um, it is a busy time for sure. And unfortunately, it's like, it's not even like I can do like evenings because I have shit I gotta do in the evenings too. I got a family I gotta see at some point. So, um, the exact same feelings on it. Yeah, man, I don't know. I really hope that something happens with it. I really hope that some amount of oxygen, like, gets the port going or something. And it's like one of those things where, like, a sane person would look at that particular bottle and be like, I probably shouldn't buy anything else from them because it seems like the one thing that I bought this for, they didn't do it right. But my crazy person reaction to it is, well, maybe I need to buy the cask strength. Maybe that's maybe that's the problem. Anyway, maybe maybe it just needs more. Maybe it needs more. All right. So we'll spend some time with our friends here. We're not going to do this whole video. We're going to do like just the tour part. Then when they start the tasting, then we'll do our own tasting. But since we're doing so much Ardbeg, since we're doing so many Ardbeg, I think it just makes sense to see what's going on over here. You know what I'm saying? Wait to see if the port finish opens up first. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna rush out and buy one, but I still feel like there should be like it's gotta be something else to this, right?
The history of Ardbeg begins 1794, but as all distilleries start, they started with illegal distilling.
Illegal? No one would do that.
Legal distilling in 1815, yes, it was illegal to distill on the Isles before 1823, because
The thing that stands out to me right now is like this fucking arrow right here. Like, what is it? What is this? There's like, and there's like some kind of dog. Oh, there's that dog. That dog that's here. This dog. I gotta show you the dog. Let's see if I can get it there. Shorty, the dog. The PDS nose on Isla, this little dog. I don't really know what the deal is with this dog. But I just noticed that there's this like, weird giant arrow right here, and then there's the dog with like a red cape on. It's kind of weird.
1823, because yeah, the taxman could sail to the Isles, and
The taxman.
distilleries were the MacDougalls, and they were descendants of the Lord of the Isles. The Lord of the Isles were, yeah, very powerful clans together under the Lord of the Isle, and they were situated here on Isla. So this up at the Finlagan ruins, and I think the coast down there is a castle, and that was the political side was inside the Isle, and the castle was the military branch near the coast. Yeah, so that was the founding of the distillery.
All these distilleries have like fucking nice coastal real estate here. Look at all the fucking barrels. I just can't see them exactly. So my camera's in the way. All those barrels there. There's all different kinds there too. They got some. These bigger ones are sherry butts. I think they just started using sherry butts over here. They have to obviously must have some amount of port pipes too. Most of these would be American. Probably these smaller ones are average bourbon barrel, and this like slightly bigger ones like Hogshead. It's probably like my guess. But they all have like nice coastal real estate.
In 1815. What was really
It's a good thing that ocean is not very active.
around 1843, two women, Margaret and Flora, were the first managers of the distillery for a brief period of time. Yeah, then in the first half of the 20th century, the distillery was closing, opening, closing, opening. It was just a very bad time for whiskey because we had a world war, we had a depression, we had a prohibition in the United States. Beforehand, we had the Civil War where there was a boycott.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Ardbeg, like this current iteration of Ardbeg, is actually not. He's actually not that old. Like I can't remember when they reopened the most recent time. But I get the feeling it's like only been open since like the 2000s at some point or something like that. Running again. I can't remember. He'll probably say. How is life? Life's going. That's for sure. On the grind every day.
And then we had the Second World War. We had forbidden.
I'm glad that I kind of sort of got my sleep schedule thing figured out. Soon, like when my work schedule changed, I was like fucked up for like the past couple weeks. I've been fucked up, but I feel like now I'm not like falling asleep randomly so much anymore. So that's good. I had to like rechange my fucking all my caffeine intake and stuff, which is strange that it should be that important, but of course when your schedule's really tight and you have to sleep exactly at a certain time or else you don't get any sleep. Yeah.
In 1959, the distillery actually went private as a private company under the leadership of actually one of the McDougalls, and it was then the
Yeah, I like have a history of like really playing really fast and loose with it, to be honest. And I have a weird, ever since I was in high school, like after I got out of high school, I have like a weird sleep pattern where like I have like the Einstein sleep pattern where like most people they go to bed and they get 2 REM cycles and then they wake up in the morning. And like I would always like get 1 REM cycle, then I'd wake up and like do the other half of my day and then get another REM cycle later. Like I'd sleep in like 2 4-hour segments. Um, like when I was at college, I would get up and go to college, come home, go to bed, sleep for 4 hours, get up, do other shit until like 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I would sleep from 3 in the morning till 7 in the morning, and then get up and go to college. So um, the way that my work schedule is now, I have to get all my sleeping in right in one chunk, and that's very hard for me.
Ardbeg Distilling Ltd. So it was a private company with private investors, but it was still under the leadership of the family. And then in 1974, the distillery was actually then sold to Hiram Walker, which later became Allied Dumac. So they were kind of part of a big company. And in 1981, it was actually so bad that there was a bit of a crisis with the blends, and the distillery was closed down. Luckily, they were now part of Allied Dumac, which Lafroig was also part of. So the distillers or the people, the workers from Lafroig were periodically sent over to Ardbeg, and they were wetting the washbacks and a bit of maintenance going on. So the distillery was not really closed down and left for dead, but it was actually mothballed and kept a bit into shape. So the distillery could reopen in 1989. And that was really, really good because that's
Okay, 89. So it's been going since 89.
what we're enjoying right now, and that's nearly 40 years ago. So we do have a bit of an old stock of Ardbeg as well. So they later then in 1997 actually got bought by Glenmorangie PLC. Yes, Glenmorangie, the Highland Distillery, bought Ardbeg. They actually brought them really up to a modern distillery. So they opened 1 year later in 1998.
What a purchase that is.
Visitor center, and Ardbeg really became a single malt. Back in the day, it was just blend, and then we had a bit of like McDougal Island whiskey or something like that. But now it became really Ardbeg single malt. In 2004, Glenmorangie and Ardbeg got bought by Louis Vuitton Moët Hennessy, and Louis Vuitton Moët Hennessy do know how to do marketing. We all know the marketing at Ardbeg is a bit more glamorous, like the handbags and like the champagne. And so
I guess I wouldn't have guessed that. It's definitely true with Glenmorangie that the marketing is more like fancy luxury product. But
so it all starts with an old Bobby mill from Robert Bobby from 1921. So a mill that is over 100 years old, and back in the days it was actually powered by water, so it was a water mill. And today they do 26 batches of barley with 5 tons per week, and it's really reliable and really old, but it really works very, very well. So let's continue. This old cast iron mash tun from 1961 is actually just the outside, because the one from 99, a stainless steel semi-lauter tun, is the inside. But I love that they
actually replaced it, but they wanted to make it look old.
Old rugged material from worked for hundreds of years, and the new one is modern semi-lauter tun, efficient, more reliable, constant quality, and it's really working fine. But they still got an improvement over the last years. They got an automatic cleaning system. They don't have to climb in and clean out every single time, which is really, really good. As they had the production increase their production capacity, it was a bit of a discussion about is the mash tun gonna have enough capacity? But yes, it does. But now they are pretty much at capacity. You can't go much higher with more production now because of the mash tun. So next time they increase their production capacity, they have to do something with the mash tun for sure. This here is the old wash room of the distillery of Ardbeg. Here we have the old 6 wash bags. They're all made of Douglas fir, which is kind of Oregon pine. And they're all made of that because I found a rumor online that 3 of them were made of larch, and people here said no, they're all made of Douglas fir. And as they had a production increase, they had to have more of them. But they didn't find a lot of space here, so they took out the old grain hoppers and put in 4 new Douglas fir wash bags. And also they have another building where they have another 2 wash bags. Kind of
These tops are very
experimental, but
modern.
they can use them for normal production as well. And so in total they have now 12 wash bags, and so kind of a doubling in capacity, but they are distributed around 3 buildings. It's just,
You can tell this place has been modernized.
it's a historic site.
Because some of the other
It's
tours you
grown
watch, the
historically back
washbacks
here
look
and
like
moved
fucking
upwards.
ancient. Like
Then we
what distillery was it? I think it's Tobermory that we watched it, and like the top of their washbacks, they just use like some hanging piece of soap or something like that to like keep the crozin at bay. And these guys have these like fancy like tubular systems and stuff like that. It's like not even the same. They're like not even the same
Less, it works
century.
fine. The fermentation takes around 66 hours to 71 hours. It has always been at Ardbeg this variation because of the fact that you have 23,000 liters and about half of that goes into the wash still. So the other half sits another certain period of time in there and ferments a bit more. The style, what you want to have with the wash is creamy, waxy, fruity wash with texture, what they say here, and you have a lot of things to fiddle around with, kind of the clear wort, cloudy wort situation, then temperatures and durations, and also the fact that you have lactic bacterial in the wood. So this is all done exactly how Ardbeg wants to have it. And yeah, with this nicely fermented juice, we go into the still room. Here in the still house is where the magic happens. This is the new still house. The old still house
Looks
still
pretty
does
fucking
exist.
new.
You can have a tour through it, but it's decommissioned. The stills are not running. There are old pictures on the wall. Everything is silent. It's everything. The equipment is still there, but they're actually not allowed to use it. All the magic happens here in the new still house, where the equipment is exactly.
Yeah, this looks nice. Yeah, it's all brand fucking new looking shit. Compared to like some of the other tours that we watch, where like the stills and like the barrel and the still house and everything look old, this looks brand fucking new. I mean, it's not like super duper new. Like it's probably been running for a while, but I mean like when we're talking about distilleries that have been running for over 100 years, this is fucking space age compared to some of them. And you can tell that it's made for tours too, just by looking at it. There's some distilleries that you get to watch the tour, and you know that the tour was given to a media person, and they don't normally do like tourism because like it doesn't look nearly as nice as this. Like the stills will all be like brown and black and like all grimy. It's like, yeah, we don't bother to polish these to a nice copper color because there's no reason to. But these are all these look like they've been shined. You know what I mean?
As the old one, also built by Richard Forsyth. So he still probably had the plans for the old stills and made them exactly like the old ones. So what are we doing here?
These are pretty fucking big
wash
too.
Still is filled with 11,750 liters.
I guess it's not that
exactly
big.
half of a wash bag, and it actually runs twice.
It just looks really big, I
when
guess.
the spirit still runs once. So
Maybe it's because he's really
this runs
close.
pretty fast, and the spirit still runs a bit slower, so better alcohol separation. So the low wines that come off from the wash still are 4,700 liters twice. Then we have 4 shots and feints from the last run, and the spirit still runs then with 13,500 liters, which is quite a lot because and unusual, because you have more in the spirit still than the wash still. This is just because they run it really, really fast, and they run it twice. Yeah. Then let's talk about a little bit about the character. The character that Ardbeg wants to have is actually very fresh, grassy, like methyl, and they don't want to have their phenolic character distilled out, so that's also a big point.
Yeah, well, that's one thing about Ardbeg too, is there's compared to other Isla single malts, it's a lot more minty and fresh. You can definitely get like a mint character. I don't get mint on any other Isla scotches, I don't think.
So how they do it is they have a lamp-shaped still. Also, the still is not filled to capacity. It's a bit bigger than it should be. And they
I guess that
also
would make
have
sense.
a purifier. And the purifier also takes out the heavy vapors, the heavy tasting notes in there, and puts it back in the pot, and then it gets recycled, and only the...
Yeah, interesting note about this thing that he's talking about, this this thing here.
Get into
Where he's talking about it really takes the super heavy
there is
vapors
one
and puts them
Ardbeg
back into
with
the pot.
It's called the heavy vapors.
Oh yeah, he's
When
gonna
they
talk
block
about it. Okay.
And all the heavy vapors actually get into the new make, and that's then the Ardbeg heavy vapors.
Yeah, there is a version that they don't use that device.
Kind of made by the production team. Yeah, and then we have, in the end, we have the cutting points. They only have 10 minutes of 4 shots, so you have the 4 shots a bit smaller, so you get more of the lighter characters in. And then you have the feints. The second cutting point is also a bit earlier, so you're missing out a bit more of the heavier tones, heavier flavors. So you have the
Yeah, one of the things I learned is that when you're working with peated malt, a lot of the phenolics actually come in way at the back of the distillation process, and you kind of want to cut the feint later when you have a peated malt to get more of the phenolics involved. And that's why peated malts tend to be more oily than unpeated ones, because they tend to cut the feint at the back of the distillation way longer. But it's interesting that he notes that they try to cut it a little earlier here, which means you would get kind of less of the deeper peat notes.
The cuts really a bit more onto the fresher methyl side as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, and let's talk a little about the production capacity, because Ardbeg used to be always like, yeah, they have 1 million capacity, and then
Okay.
people tweaked it a bit, and they got up to 1.2 and maybe 1.4 in the end. And now they actually have a capacity of 2.8 million liters per year, which is quite a lot. This year is kind of, yeah, they're still a bit getting in.
Yeah, when we looked at, what was the output that we looked at just recently? Oh shit, I can't remember which distillery it was. Was it Ben Romack? I can't remember. There's one distillery we just looked at not too long ago where their output capacity per year was like 211K. These guys are doing 2.8 million. And I think Glenfiddich does 13 million. just to keep in perspective how much liquid is coming out.
into it, but their target is 2.5 million liters per year, which is also a lot. So that is good news for the whiskey industry, because in 5 years' time we're gonna have more 5-year-old, and in 10 years' time we're gonna have more 10-year-old, and in between we're gonna have more of the other non-age statement whiskies, which is really good because there's gonna be more ample supply of Ardbeg whiskies going around. Always a good thing. So yeah, that's the distillation, and let's see how the whiskey is traveling into the casks. With the increased production capacity, we need to do more casking per week. So they actually switched around a little bit the casking process. It's not done next to the main yard anymore.
I always find it funny, like how like not like what's the word you use? Like when you look at Jameson, when I was watching Jameson, their barrel house is like a bunch of casks on pallets, pallets on pallets in a giant warehouse. But all these Scotch distilleries, it's like their dunnage warehouses are just look like some old man's shed. It's like it really doesn't look very like big industrial operation or like even organized. It just looks like a bunch of random barrels in an old man's giant shed, which feels very like crafty, if you will, but
actually done in a warehouse.
Like they just got some random fucking wood sitting here. like what? You wouldn't guess these guys are going through 2.8 million liters of distillate every year. It doesn't look like, it just looks like a bunch of nonsense.
Here
I just find that so funny.
The end part of the distillery, and they actually now have to do it 4 times a week. They get a lot of bourbon barrels, first fill, second fill, then we have a lot of sherry casks here, as you can see, and there's also Madeira casks and tons of other casks, and there's always special casks around here. Some casks are probably special casks, you can't see it because there's something special inside here. Ardbeg likes to do a lot of experiments because, yeah, that's Ardbeg. They have at least 1 special edition per year, usually 2.
It's interesting to see when was this video posted? Last year. These barrels that are here are 2010, so these are already 13-year-old barrels here. This whole row.
Yeah. So what is also very interesting is they have a marrying vat that is for the Anoa. It's a big vat, like the size of a washback, maybe a little smaller, and you dump a lot of casks in there. Well, you dump the whiskey off the casks in there, and it gets married together. When you get the recipe just right, then it's off to the, it's actually just waiting for a few months in that marrying tank, and then it's off to the bottling plant, which is done off-site. So it's really, really nice in here. A lot of dunnage style warehouses here on premise, so bricked walls, heavy stone bricked walls, stamped earthen floor, and very near to the sea, and only stored three casks high, and if you have sherry casks, then only 2 casks high. It's just safety reasons. Yeah,
I think you're allowed to cheat and put like 1 sherry and 2 regular barrels or something like that, but yeah.
And yeah, that is the maturing and filling of casks here at Ardbeg. And now we're gonna have a tasting of
Are those automated?
Stored 2 casks. That is the maturing and filling.
They sure look automated. There's no one standing there. Interesting.
Cask here at Ardbeg, and now we're gonna have a tasting of the Ardbegs, and I really love to know how they're gonna taste here at the distillery. So,
all right, so they're gonna do tasting. We're gonna do our own tasting. What do they have? They have the Wee BC, the Ugdal, which we have here, the 10, and they also have the 25, which I don't have the money for that. So yeah, we're not gonna be doing that. But we have our own. We have our own guys to get through here, which 3 of them are the same. They're close. All right. We're going to just pop out some notes here. We'll do them like one by one, and then probably we'll do some comparison with them afterwards too. So we got the 5, we got the 10, we got the Ubdal, we got the Corey of Reckon. So we'll do this roughly in order of potency. Oops, I lost one. All right. So of course, we'll do the smokiest one first. And we'll get ourselves properly smoke blind here, because these are all going to be extremely smoky. So first one we got here is the Ardbeg Wee Beastie 5-year-old. And of course, these are all Islay single malt Scotch whiskies. This one in particular is 47.4% alcohol or 94.8 proof. It is non-chill filtered, natural color. It is 5 years, so it's pretty young. You can call it Scotch after 3 years, but this one is 5 years. Most of the time, you get like 10 and 12 is pretty normal for a first age statement, but some of these Islas you get like 8 as a common age statement because you want to get some of the more of that like peated malt character in there. But this one is extra young and aggressive. So 5 years in ex-bourbon and ex-sherry butts. It's a mix of bourbon and sherry. So we'll give her a solid little while here to rest in the glass. I haven't had a peated Scotch in a little while, so these will be a little smoky for me at first, but that's what we like. We like that stuff. Young and intensely smoky with a rich, explosive mouthfeel of chocolate, tar, and savory meats. These are all things we come to know about Ardbeg. This is natural color here. As far as I know, there's no color added in anything that Ardbeg produces. So it'll all be a natural color. There was some kind of like weird thing that happened. I can't remember. There was one European country that, in order for you to export alcohol to this particular country, they required you to say if they were colored or not. And there was one that came up that an Ardbeg 10 like maybe colored or something like that. But as far as I know, so people are starting to question whether Ardbeg is colored or not because it doesn't actually say natural color on here anywhere. But the distillery always confirms that there's no coloring added. I don't know why they just don't write it on the label. That would be better for everybody. But we can assume this is natural color, and it's a little bit even more colored than I would think. I think the 10, which we're going to get into in a minute, is even lighter than this. And you would think, hey, well, if the 10 is lighter, how is the 5 darker? And simply, it comes down to sherry. So there's some amount of ex-sherry butts used in the maturation of this 5-year. And those will have a deeper impact on color than ex-bourbon. Whereas the 10-year is all ex-bourbon. We can even just since we're talking about it, putting these in the glass for a minute is probably not a bad idea anyway. Get them to start resting. I'm getting a little low on this 10. I'll have to buy a new one. Tragic. So yeah, here's the 10. Why do you have all 3 of them? What do you mean all 3 of them? All 4 of them. I have all of them. I don't have all of them. But I would have all 5 of them, but I couldn't find the 5th one. How's it going, Critics? So this one, the 10-year-old, 46% alcohol by volume or 92 proof. It's slightly lower in proof. But this one uses exclusively first and second fill bourbon. But it's 10 years old instead of 5. So it's 5 years older than the 5-year-old. How much you want to guess? It's not nearly as colored though. Look at that. This one is twice as old. That's a different sherry makes. So yeah, we got the 5, we got the 10. And we'll get out those other ones here in a minute. Oh. That's that peated smell I remember. It's quite smoky, vegetal, minty. You get some of those fresh fruit notes, like light grilled pineapples and apples. Although you do get a bit of a berry in here. And that's something I get out on the 10 too. A little bit of this like kind of berry fruit note. And the campfire essence for me with Ardbeg is always more like with Lefroy, for me, it's like you get more of like an actively lit, smoky campfire. Sometimes I describe it as like a hickory smoke. The Ardbeg smoke for me is kind of more like there was a campfire and then you just poured water on it and it's smoldering. You get that smoldering, smoky character, that drowned campfire kind of note. But still like fresh and fruity. You get some of those light kind of like pineapple, apple fruits, but you also get a bit of a berry fruit. It's also got that bit of that mint to it. Minty and grassy. All right. Give a taste to this one. The Wee BC 5-year-old. Cheers. Man, the finish on Ardbeg always has this kind of like really dark, bitter log, creosote kind of aspect to it. Very tarry, almost sometimes bleeding into like a black licorice, but it's like a sweet tar. But on the palate, on entry, you get some of those like sweet kind of fruity notes, but also joined by some of that grassiness, grassy, light fruits. And then kind of as you bleed into the mid palate, you get more of that smoke, like drowned campfire essence. And then you have like some of that tar comes in right on top. Very tarry for me. If I had to like talk about immediately like the mid palates of Ardbeg, Lagavulin, Lefroy, Ardbeg is like tar, and Lagavulin is like ash, and Lafroig is like earth. Those are like the ways that I would kind of describe the differences. All right, so the 10. Let's look at the 10 here. Oh, it's much more on the like light orchard fruit characteristics, less on the like berry notes. The 5 is like smokier and peatier, and the 10 is more like more fruitier, more kind of like on that sweet fruits, grassy, less on the campfire, more medicinal, more you get more of that kind of like Band-Aid hospital thing. Where the 5 has kind of some of these meatier notes that I'm starting to get now is kind of like more protein. The 10 is definitely more medicinal, more hospital, more unwanted cough syrup. Oh, that's so much more minty, more methanol. Less on the proteins and smokes, more on the methanol. Oh, that's kind of interesting. All right. So let's go for this one, the 10-year, the flagship whiskey. Cheers. Same kind of like charred log creosote, kind of like finish. A little bit more ashy though. Doesn't nearly bleed as well into chocolate as the 5 is for me. Now the palate is again more kind of in that light charred fruits kind of vibe, and as you hold it on the tongue, you kind of get more into that like tar realm, or that peat, tar, grassiness. Very similar in that way. Probably like the 10 feels more like lighter and more like there's almost some of the bourbon like vanilla kind of notes are kind of in there a little bit for me too, but it's more of like almost like a lemony kind of thing going on as well. The peat profile really similar. I'd say the 5 is still smokier, which would make a lot of sense. But the the 10 has more of the like kind of medicinal characters, at least right now. All right, so I've got the 4th offering here. This is the Ardbeg Ugdal. And this is 54.2% ABV or 108.4 proof, so we're jacking the proof up a little bit. This is 10 years in ex-bourbon and ex-Oloroso sherry butts. So this is kind of like the Big Daddy version of the 5-year. So it's roughly twice as old. It's got the same maturation. The same barrels are used for the maturation. It's also higher proof, but doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be just everything but better, because you have to remember when we come to peated whiskeys, the younger expressions tend to have more of the peat characters, more of the malt is showing, and less of like the barrel impact. So since this is older in expression, it'll have a lot of things going for it that are similar, but it won't have as much of the smoky character. So where this one, it's probably the smokiest between these two. It's got more of the protein, more of the like smoky notes, more of the like tarry notes. It's a little stronger in that realm. This one is probably going to have less of that. Probably have more of the sherry present, I would imagine. But of course, we're also jacking up the ABV a little bit here to 54.2. So that'll help it out a little bit. A lot of people, the Ugdal is their favorite of the core range of Ardbegs. I haven't quite ever had it before, so this will be a new experience for me. And it'll be same with the Corey Vrecken. I've never had these before. And what not a better place than to share them with you guys on Twitch TV, where we do more than play video games. All right. It says on the front, treacle, bacon, and bonfires. See how that holds up. Righteous. All right. This one's a little darker in color. It's definitely darker than the 10. Good shade darker. It's probably still a little darker than the 5. By a touch. There's probably less water added in this too, so that might just be the main difference. But of course, it's probably about the same age as the 10-year. It doesn't have an age statement, but with these releases that are kind of like a little up there in price, they don't necessarily want to like put a 10-year age statement on it, because that like, well, why would I pay like 50% more for this one if they're both 10-year-olds kind of thing, right? So marketing reasons, but I'm sure it's roughly 10 years old. So we've noticed a few peated ones at this point, so I wouldn't be surprised if this one doesn't come across as smoky, just for the pure fact that we've already nosed some smoky whiskey here. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Oh, okay. So definitely still have some of that smoke coming at me. But you can really dig into some of that sherry. That sherry's being much more presented here. You definitely get some of those rich, dried fruits, dried like raisins, dates, this sort of thing. But there's also like a bit of a nuttiness to me. It's a little bit nutty. It is smoky, but it's not as smoky. I do like a bit of like, I don't know if I'd say maple, but it's definitely, there's a sweetness to it. Maple's a fine way to say it, I suppose. So, ooh, there's a bit of a bacon there. We're going to compare it to this 5-year, kind of like head to head here. Because these are the same barrels, but this one is half as old roughly. This one has twice as much age, but it's also a bit higher proof, so that's not quite super fair, but again, this one is a little bit more protein. And this one's got more of a sherry presence. I don't know how much sherry got used in this one, but it's more on that raisin. You don't really get the raisin out of this one. It's a little bit there, but maybe pour a little bit more of this. This one still is a little bit more medicinal. More like protein, smoke, lighter fruits. There is some, you can dig in there and get a little bit of that raisin in there, but this one definitely seems more on the darker kind of like dates and raisins thing going on. But you still have some of that smoke character. It's still a little bit minty, a little medicinal. This one is feeling more on the medicinal side than the 10. Maybe that's wrong. Oh, that's interesting. These are both a little medicinal, but the 10 is much more grassy, much more on the like hay. Like tropical fruits and hay. And this one's more on the like lower notes on that raisin, that date. All right. The Ugdal on the palate. Cheers. Whoa. And still a strong punch of smoke on that one. That higher proof was really kind of like helping deliver some of those core malt flavors. The palate kind of feels very similar to the Wee Beastie, actually. It's very similar. I'm not really getting a whole lot of that, like, sherry notes on the palate. I'm not really getting, like, a huge amount of, like, raisin date character. It's definitely a lot sweeter. I think that's kind of like where that sherry might be coming across. It's kind of more in... it's something more like a sweetness, more like a bit of like toffee kind of thing going on in there. Yeah, where the 10 is like kind of like grassy and fresh. The Ugdal is more rich and sweet. There is some of that like raisin and date for me on the nose. But it's not present really on the palate. That rich kind of sweetness permeates the mid palate. You get some of that like tarriness, some of that smoky factor going into the finish, where you get that more of that creosote bonfire. Still very campfirey. A little bit chocolatey. Yeah, like the finish is chocolatey, kind of like the Wee Beastie. Good chocolatey characteristic on the finish. All right, so we have one more. We have one more. And then we'll do some four-way comparison, I suppose. So the last one that we have here, which we don't have Anoa, so this is all we got for today, which is not quite the full core range, but it's pretty close. This is the Corey Vrecken. This one is 57.1% ABV, 114.2 proof. It is 8 to 14 years in ex-bourbon and ex-virgin, not ex, but ex-bourbon and virgin Limousin oak. So it has some amount of French oak, new French oak. So not like cognac, like ex-cognac. Like a lot of times you'll hear of Limousin oak, and it's like, you know, some kind of ex-wine product, I suppose. This one is virgin Limousin oak. Turbulent, peppery, dark fruits. There's less of a hole in the bottle. Is this one 700? Oh, it is. That's wild. Interesting. 750. 750. It's weird. So these bottles all look the same, right? They all look like they're the same. But when I grabbed this one, when I went to go show it, it was like kind of weird. I was like, what the, wait, what's going on down here? It's got like a hole. It's got a divot here. Because this one's only 700 milliliters. It's like the EU size. Whereas the bottoms of these ones are flush. Isn't that kind of funky? that's where they hid the extra 50 milliliters, I guess. I was like, this doesn't feel right down here. Yeah, so this one is, it doesn't say barrel proof, but this one is effectively barrel proof, I suppose. It's effectively cask strength at 57.1% alcohol. The Ugdal is not quite that strong. The Ugdal is like an overproof, and this one's kind of like an overproof too, I suppose. It could be that the barrels are a little stronger than this at cask strength. It doesn't say cask strength here, but at 57.1, this may as well be cask strength. But no sherry here, but there is some virgin Limousin oak, so that's interesting. So there we go, 80%. That's 80% of the core Ardbeg lineup here. I can already tell just by the way this is coating. This one is a little bit thicker. It's got that thickness about it. That being said, it's about the same. It's actually probably a little lighter than the Ugdal. It's maybe the same. Is it the same as the Wee Beastie? There's no sherry in this, but there is some virgin Limousin oak, I suppose. It's very similar in color to the Wee Beastie. And again, some of the juice is older, but some of it's younger. It's kind of a cask strength, a batch a little bit. Hi. There's not much room for you up here today. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of room for you up here today. You menace. You little menace. Are you gonna sit and be good? You can just sit there and be good. You don't want any of this anyway. It's yucky. Want to smell that? No, I know you didn't. Ooh, the legs on that are pretty strong, though. Liking that. No, you gotta stay on this side. We're gonna hide these, too, because you're gonna want them. Oh, it's got a little bit of ethanol coming off of it still. We're gonna give that a minute. Give myself some more water. Alright. Yeah, that is kind of peppery, isn't it? What did this say? Influence me a little bit. Dark fruits? Okay, okay. There is a bit of a fruity something in there. Although you would think the dark fruit would be more on the one that's got the sherry in it. There's some good legs going on this glass. Yeah, it's some thick stuff. You can just tell. Look at those dribbles. Look at the leggage going on there. You know, get nearly the same on the 10. You get some, but all right, down back here, we're still getting some of that smoky aspect, so that's good. We're not completely... Yeah, that's interesting. There's kind of like a spiciness, kind of like a peppery spiciness. And there is kind of like a fruity, like a dark fruit kind of like thing going on. To me, it's like dark berries, like blackberry. Like a smoky blackberry thing. Still that campfire essence is in there. Still smoky. You get a little bit of that mintiness. There's a little bit of that medicinal character. All these like Ardbeg kind of like characteristics are still present here. But yeah, it's on the like dark, kind of like blackberry is kind of like where I'm going. This one is more like raisins, like a bit nutty. And then this one is more peppery, more blackberry. Maybe like smoked blueberry, like these deeper berry kind of fruits. At least today. There is some of this like kind of malty note though, this kind of like hay note. It's a little bit there too. There's a little bit of that malt character. Let's go back to the 10. Oh, and the 10 is more fresh and grassy. So it's kind of like peppery. Like these are all smoky. They all have some of this menthol character. They all have some amount of a medicinal character. Some are more medicinal than others. But this one is kind of like in the dark berry fruits kind of nose. And this one is kind of in the like raisins and dates kind of nose. And then this one is kind of in the like fresh, grassy kind of nose. And then Wee Beastie is kind of like more in the protein. Grassy too. It is also kind of got that grassiness, but a little bit of that berries there, but it's kind of like in protein. Fresh hay, grassiness. Some nuttiness, raisin. Some like baking spice kind of creeping in on that one. And this one, kind of like dark berries, pepper and smoked berries. Like blackberry and blueberry. All right. So Corey Brecken on the palate. Cheers. Oh. The quality of the liquid on this Corey Brecken, oh, it's so good. It's so smooth and silky and palate coating. Even compared to like the Ugda, which is like only slightly less alcohol. The mouthfeel of the Corey Brecken is so good. Now the Ugda and the Corey Brecken, we obviously just opened these, so they are neck pourers, whereas these ones are not neck pourers. The palate on the Corey Brecken is coming across so core Ardbeg to me. It's hard to like dig in there and really find much about that virgin limousine oak barrel. It really kind of feels like right now it's coming across almost like a cask strength 10. It's not as fruity as the 10. It's not as like fresh as the 10. But it's kind of got like a torrent of those core Ardbeg flavors that you normally experience with the 10. Such a full, deep mouthfeel. Very thick. Okay, so these are still in order. So if we compare, say, the 10 and the Corey Brecken together, the 10 is fresh, grassy, minty. The Corey is smokier, pepperier. You get a bit of that dark fruit kind of character in there. That, like, for me is berries. They just say dark fruit on the label, and they're not very specific. For me, it's like blackberry, blueberry. It doesn't really have that, like, bright blueberry flavor, like, or like artificial blueberry or that kind of thing, but just like dark berry kind of note. Almost like the smell of blueberries, not the taste. The Corey's a little more meatier for me. And the 10 is like fresher. Now our 10 is probably the lowest fill, and it's been open for the longest, so that could have something to do with it too. But I get the feeling that having some new barrels in the Corey and it having like a higher, closer to cask strength, has just amped up the like some of the core parts, and a bit of the dilution on the 10 is kind of like giving way to like more fruitiness. More fruitiness and more freshness. All right. A 10 on the palate, Slancheva. The mouthfeel on the 10 is still pretty like thick and full. Some of the sweetness is starting to show up on the palate. So you get that like tarriness in there. It's still kind of grassy, minty. A little bit of like kind of citrusy something is in there too. Very fresh. Let's hit that Corey again. Let's see if I can find any of that like fruity character on the palate. The Uggdal and the Corey have been very like strong on the smoky characteristics. I think it's just because they're neck borers. They're higher proof too, which definitely helps a lot. But they're not as fruity as the nose would suggest, and that could be some combination of higher proof and neck pour. Oh, yeah, the Corey is darker and denser. Mouthfeel on the 10, pretty damn strong. Mouthfeel on the Corey, fucking insane. I'm gonna have to like try to focus on the texture of the Uggdal here in a minute, but the texture on this bottle Might be one of the best I've ever had. It is so thick and velvety and viscous. Immediately you can tell as soon as it's on the palate. So rich in texture. And usually with some of these whiskeys, the texture is almost like an afterthought. I'm like focusing so much on the flavor that it's like, oh, right, I got to think about texture a little bit when we come to like reviewing something. But the texture is so good on this Corey that it's like one of the most immediately noticeable pieces of it when you get it on the palate is so thick and just so velvety smooth, so coating. It's almost like unreal, really. What a mouthfeel on that. But something nearly as fresh as the 10. And 10 is clearly much fresher. Let's think about the mouthfeel on this Ugdal. Still pretty good. It's not nearly as good as the Corey, though. Corey definitely has the best mouthfeel. Being said, the Ugdal, we're starting to dig into some of that sherry. It's starting to come out now. Kind of being in the glass long enough, it's starting to really present kind of more of that, like, but it's not presenting kind of like, sometimes you get sherry that presents like figs and dates and raisins. And sometimes you get it presenting as like a toffee, like a dark toffee, and sometimes it's like cocoa and spices and this sort of thing. Starts to come out to me like a dark toffee, especially on the nose. And you're getting some of those like kind of really dark toffee characteristics on the palate, kind of deep in there, with a little bit of those spicy notes, like kind of like that clove kind of characteristic on the palate. It's kind of like we're finally getting into some of that sherry, which I know is there, but couldn't get right at first. And I think it's just, man, the neck pour is so good. On the smoky notes that it's hard to like dig into them. Man, it's really hard for me between the Ugdal and the Corey, which one I actually like better. The Ugdal's really bringing some of that sweet character now, some of that dark toffee kind of thing. It's almost like the Ugdal is like a little bit got a little bit more of an interesting like sherry dimension. I don't really know exactly what the Limousine Oak's bringing on this. There is kind of like a berry fruit in here, but sometimes you get a berry fruit on the 10 and the 5 too. So it's not quite new. It's not like unique to a Limousine Oak, Diversion Limousine Oak thing. The Corey almost just feels like cask strength. It feels like a 10 cask strength, or just like the complete embodiment of the Ardbeg profile a little bit. At like full force. His pepperier, though. That could just be a cask strength thing, I suppose, but it's definitely higher on the pepper character. Oh. And these are delicious. Pretty much every single one of these is delicious in their own way. I wish I could have gotten Anoa for this. That's the one thing we're missing with the core range. We do have the spectacular sitting back here waiting in the wings. The spectacular. I would be interested in trying some more of these kind of like Ardbeg, kind of like special release kind of things, or maybe like an older age statement. If we can get our hands on something that's terribly expensive one day, maybe we will. But these are pretty good. They're not like super duper different from each other. They're all clearly got the Ardbeg character in them. The 5 kind of feels like the smokiest, most protein kind of one. So we kind of like recap what we got here. The 5 is like this, the smoky, brashy, kind of peaty one. It's like a pretty good value too for like a peaty one. Does a good job of carrying that core essence, that like smoke and tar and protein. You can tell it's a bit younger, especially after we've tasted these other ones. You can tell this one is a little bit on the younger side. But it's not bad for it, honestly. I think it's the cheapest offering too, so that kind of helps the wallet a little bit, but it's kind of got like all of the Ardbeg kind of like core peak characteristics are in there. You don't really get too much of that sherry, whatever's in there. A little bit, but not too much. But it is kind of like a younger, brasher, but it still carries the flavor of the core range. The core distillate, I suppose I should say. And this in this particular lineup, again, the 10 is the bottle I've had the longest. So it could be that it's the lowest bottle, but the 10 is coming across like as the freshest one. It's the most medicinal, the most on the like light fruits, the most on the like medicinal mint, maybe it's like citrus, kind of the fresh notes, the grassy notes, most present in the 10. You get some of that sweetness on the palate. You climb into that like sweet kind of tarry note. That classic Ardbeg creosote in the back. It's still got all that smoky character. It's maybe not as young and brash and smoky as the 5, but it kind of replaces that with some more sweetness, some more fresh notes. Kind of like just fresher overall, more light and bright and mint and fruit, this sort of thing. So we upper proof the get a little bit. Go to the Ugdal. As this one's been sitting, some of that sherry is really showing up now on the nose. You get more of that like a dark toffee kind of thing. That dark toffee, like dark spice note, is kind of like what's obvious to me. You still get a little bit of that protein, a little bit of that mint is there. Still a little bit grassy, but I think you'll immediately recognize some of that sherry influence on this one. Whereas there is sherry in the Wee Beastie, but it's not super obvious to me. There's definitely a good amount of sherry impact on the Oudal, and you'll get it. So I got a good full mouthfeel. You get some of that rich, kind of like dark toffee on the palate, with all the like standard Ardbeg notes. Still get some of that tar in there, creosote on the finish, but it's woven in with some of like a little sherry characteristics, like a deep spice, like a clove. A little bit of that like sweetness is kind of laced through. Of the four, for me, probably the sweetest one is the Oudal. So it's kind of like we got the young and brash and smoky one. We kind of got like the fresh one, bright and fresh and minty and grassy. We kind of have like the dark, richer, more toffee, kind of darker sweetnesses on the Oudal. And so far for me, this Corey has just been like kind of just the cask strength version. I don't know what the limousine oak is doing here exactly. I can't quite pick it out. But this is kind of like the maximum volume on all those core notes. Probably the peppery one. The nose does have some of those like smoky blackberry dark fruit things, but they're not really there on the palate. I don't have a lot left in here, but pouring this kind of screws it up a little bit because it's hasn't been sitting, but this last one is kind of just like the full embodiment. It's almost like it would remind me of like, it's almost like the it's coming across to me kind of like the Laphroaig 10 cask strength would come across if you were talking about Laphroaig. It's like, yeah, you got the 10, and this is kind of like the 10 cask strength. That's kind of what it feels like. They can't put a 10-year age statement on this, but they probably wouldn't want to anyway because they're kind of trying to do something fancy with that virgin limousine oak barrel. But for me, it's kind of just coming across very similar to like the full force of the kind of like core range, like the cask strength offering that they don't have. This is basically the cask strength offering. The rich velvety mouthfeel, obvious as soon as you get it on the palate. And it has still some of those fresh characteristics are still present. You get some of that mint, that grassiness is in there. A little bit of that orchard fruit tickles a little bit. But that like black tarry character is in there. It definitely is peppery, which is a kind of a bit of a label suggestion, I suppose. But it is kind of more on that black pepper side. You still get that like rich creosote. It's not like as chocolatey in the back. It's more earthy in the back. It's more tarry in the back. Whereas you kind of get some chocolate on these ones with cherry or sherry involved. You don't really get those on the ones that aren't sherry. It kind of comes across more earthy, more tarry, this sort of thing. If I had to pick which one I preferred like just off the cuff, I think I prefer the Corey. That would be the one I would go to between these immediately. I think that the 5 and the 10 are great, but they definitely get outshone, I think, by these kind of more expensive offerings. They're higher proof. They're a little bit older sometimes, or have more attention paid to them. So it kind of makes sense that these ones that are like 50 and 60% more expensive maybe are kind of like more hardy than the kind of like earlier parts of the range. These are kind of more affordable. These kind of are less affordable, but more flavor, more punching power. So it makes sense, I think, that they're kind of like more tastier in some way. The Ugdal has some The Ugdal has some nice complexity. It's got all those Ardbeg kind of characteristics, but you definitely have a different dimension, adding some of that sherry in there. That being said, it does overwrite some of the freshness that's on the 10, I feel. Whereas the Corey kind of like has some of those fresh notes from the 10, but just like puts everything at full power. So if I had to pick a favorite, I think it's the Corey between these ones. The Oogie is pretty good too, but I think it's like the most different. I think out of the 4, the Ugda is the most different. It's kind of got the most secondary dimension to it, which is a good thing. We like some extra complexity, but it also feels like that sherry does overwrite maybe some of the things that the bourbon barrels tend to do. Some of the things that the distillate kind of like shows, some more of that fruity, grassy character is maybe buried in some of that rich toffee kind of thing. It's for that reason like not my clear front runner. I just love the like obvious thickness to this Corey. The fact that it's on all cylinders, doesn't drink hot at all like you might expect from this proof. I've had bottles of less ABV that have drank hotter than this. Delicious. All these are delicious. But I think between them all, Corey's probably my favorite, just off the cuff. So that being said, that's all she wrote, I think. Here we are. We tasted the as much of the core range as I could get access to. I didn't get access to Anoa, which we will try to find a bottle of Anoa at some point. Maybe we'll do a similar tasting in the future with Anoa. We definitely got to review the 10. It's not like danger low, but it's getting there. You know, it's on the low end. I could explain why it felt like the least smoky one. But it kind of also makes sense that it might be the least smoky one too, because this one is younger and these ones are higher proof, but it definitely felt like the least smoky one. It definitely felt like the freshest one, and it could be to do with the fill level, but I still got quite a bit in there. I'm not too worried about it, to be honest. And these ones, I wouldn't be surprised them being smokier. They're brand new fresh cracks and they're higher proof. Definitely all the smoke came out of these ones today. Didn't disappoint. Yeah. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for being here. Just a short broadcast today. I've been doing no broadcasts on Sundays. I try to spend some time with my family and like make more stuff for the stream. But today was my 1 year. 1 year doing this. I think it's been worthwhile. Hopefully you guys think so too. I'll be back tomorrow with a review, more standard sort of thing. We got all kinds of new bottles to crack and think about and review and talk about. I got some more ideas floating around, which I just need to find time, man. I actually have a week off next week. I had to burn a week's vacation, so I burned a week's vacation next week. So maybe we'll get some cool, interesting things done next week. Join the Discord, hit up my YouTube, And yeah, thanks for being here. Hope you have a great day. And